Yes, you are right. In fact, a lot of people, when they buy these older homes, they know they're going to be walking into a bit of a project because of just the age of the house. The construction styles are obviously much different than today, and the materials have a little bit of wear and tear on them than new construction for obvious reasons. But a lot of people don't realize that a fieldstone foundation, while incredibly strong and will stand the test of time if done properly, does need maintenance from time to time. And so we get this question a lot because it's usually the forgotten space in an older home. A lot of times it's a very dimly lit basement. It's not usually used for any sort of accessory living space like a family room or a den. It's usually just where either the laundry is or your utilities are, and it's sometimes for storage, obviously. But for the most part, stone foundations are going to be in a maintenance phase as we get into the 2000 and newer. A lot of these older foundations will have mortar that's going to be in between the stones. Some older homes have no mortar in between them, and we'll talk about that another time. But for the houses that do have mortar joints in between all of the stone, that is the active area where you see deterioration of the foundation. So as you get into a house that has been untouched for 75, 100 years, the mortar joints that are in between the stones have typically kind of decayed and broken down to the end of their life. So when we go into these foundations, we'll look around, see what is going on there, and see what kind of needs there are. A lot of times people think that it's going to be a huge overwhelming project where you're going to have to bring down walls and rebuild it. In a lot of cases that's not true. More often than not, the first sign that the house is kind of in that maintenance phase of its life for the foundation is you'll see around the perimeter just a pile of dust that just, no matter how many times you sweep it, it's always going to be there. And what that is, that's actually the mortar joints breaking down, the sand and the mortar actually falling out of there because the Portland cement that was used has kind of gone its useful life there. So a lot of times you'll see the dusting around the perimeter. Another area you will see is obviously water infiltration. Now, stone foundations were never intended to be a fully waterproofed environment like they are today. So there's a lot of excessive moisture in these foundations. But if you're having water coming through the foundation walls, obviously it's been breached and it needs to be repaired. The other thing, especially this time of year, as you kind of move in towards wintertime, is the rodent infestation. So you'll see a lot of rodents coming into the foundation, mice, rats, sometimes even bigger things like squirrels and chipmunks. And they find a home in a nice warm basement versus the ice cold outside. So this is an area where you want to make sure that the foundation is tightened up. And then the last thing that people don't really think about is that this is usually where all your utilities are. And we have all of those mechanical systems running at all times, whether it's heat and water or electricity. And a wet, cold basement of that age puts excessive wear and tear on these mechanical systems. So a 20-year boiler might only last 15 or 12 years because it's in an environment that's really harsh for all the mechanical and electrical components. So what do? So we walk around the foundation with the homeowners and really understand what state is this in. Is it structurally sound? Are the mortar joints okay? Are there collapses or rebuild areas? Is there moisture penetration coming through the foundation? And usually most of them are in pretty good shape in terms of structural loading and capacity, but really the big thing is that the mortar joints are gone. And that would involve basically taking out the old mortar to a safe point, whether it's stable or not, and then packing in appropriately strength mortar for the foundation. A lot of modern construction mortars are not always applicable for a house that was built 200 years ago. So we have to make sure we marry the right materials to the right foundation. And so if somebody tells you you need a high strength mortar, that's not always the case because that can be too strong for the foundation and actually inhibit natural movement of the stones. So for these older homes, it's a lot more about looking at it as maintenance. And it's not a maintenance that you have to do every year. It's something that you do once every couple decades. So if you're walking into a newer home or a new home to you, and it's an old fieldstone foundation, and you're seeing that dust around the entire perimeter, this is an indication that it's time to look at the foundation to make sure it's good for another 50 to 100 years for the next owner. So it's a very easy process. You have questions, please feel free to reach us. This is what we do every day.